Guys, we are halfway through this thing already. How crazy is that? Also, 2014 was a great year for Marvel movies. Hey guys, welcome to my Road to Avengers Endgame series where I review every single MCU movie leading into Avengers Endgame, and now we are on Guardians of the Galaxy, which was the 10th MCU movie released and came out in 2014 and puts these very morally gray characters together, kind of a ragtag group, so that they can retrieve this thing and stop Ronan from destroying a planet. Pretty simple plot, I know, but it's not really about that. And I'm going to start off with the positives right away with this movie starts off in a awesome way. The title scene is it gives you right away what the tone of this movie is going to be and how awesome it's going to be. Chris Pratt dancing all around, singing into these little creatures, kicking them all over the place, because the first couple minutes of the movie before that were very serious. You see Peter as a kid, Peter Quill, his mother dies, and then he gets captured by some aliens, and then you see him land on this planet, and it seems kind of like a gritty movie until that moment where he turns on his Awesome Mix Volume 1 and hey, hey, starts playing, and you're okay, I know exactly what this movie is, and I love it. Set the tone right away for the film and completely got you engaged into it. This movie has a great world building part to it. There's so many different planets that they go to, and they're all interesting and unique in their own way. They all have all these different types of creatures on it, and they're all unique, and the planets look amazing. The visuals of this movie are incredible. The effects are ridiculous. This is the first time that the MCU has really gone full space, and they pulled it off so well with the visuals of space, with the visuals of these planets, the effects of all these flying around spaceship action scenes. Just the look of this movie is incredible, and it's especially considering it's the first time that Marvel really did a movie like this with the whole space aspect to it. And now we get to the main appeal of this movie, and that's the characters. I can't believe they made me care about a walking tree and a talking raccoon. These characters are so intriguing, so interesting. They're all unique, and they're so funny too. I can't believe they're all these characters that are ridiculous, and they're morally gray, and they get this ragtag group of characters together, starting off with Star-Lord, who's just a cocky dude who sleeps around and doesn't really care about much except money. He's constantly stealing and betraying people, including Yondu, who's the person who picked him up off Earth and trained him. And then you got Rocket, the talking raccoon, who is just a complete asshole. But it's so funny, too. I mean, the guy does not have much for redeeming qualities throughout most of this movie. He gets there. He eventually starts to kind of care, and he's the last person to kind of commit to this group because he's so narcissistic, such an asshole, and that's what makes him so funny. Rocket might be my favorite character in this group, but then you got Drax, who at first we meet him, he's this angry, badass, threatening dude who wants to kill Gamora, and then we get these amazing, perfectly timed comedic moments with him because of his ignorance and just how he takes everything so literal, and he's with this group of people who are so sarcastic, and the way that he fits in with them doesn't fit in with them, but it works so well. And God, the timing of the comedy in this movie is just impeccable. I just watched this a couple months ago before watching it the other day for this review, and I was laughing so hard all throughout. This movie is absolutely hilarious. It's completely different than The Winter Soldier, which came out in the same year, which was incredible in its own right. But man, it just went all the way with the humor, and I had so much fun watching this movie. I was laughing all throughout. I didn't even finish talking about the characters. Gamora is the one who's probably the most serious out of all of them. She's an adopted daughter of Thanos, but even she somehow has some amazing timing with her comedy because of her ignorance and doesn't understand how people like Quill talk. And he says this metaphor about the movie Footloose, where there's a whole town of people with sticks up their butts, and he has to teach them that dancing is fun and whatever. And then she's like, "Who put the sticks up their butts? Why would you do that? That's terrible." It's just, how can anyone not think that's funny? It's just, all throughout this movie, I can't think of a joke that didn't land. They all worked perfectly, and that they just go so naturally. They don't feel forced at all. The timing is amazing. You got a talking tree who walks around saying, "I am Groot," the same 3 words over and over and over, and somehow he finds a way to be funny with his sight gags, like when he reaches up and grabs the thing and pulls it down, the battery or whatever, and then they all, Rocket's like, "Oh, okay, we have to change our timing now." Just so many amazingly timed, whether it's a sight gag, whether it's a joke in the movie. There's just, because of all these different types of people interacting, and you got the sarcastic types and you got the literal types, so many ways that this movie finds ways to get humor in there, and I can't think of any that didn't land. But it's also got some heartfelt moments, such as Groot's sacrifice. Groot, somehow we get attached to a talking tree in 2 hours, and towards the end of the movie, the ship is going down, and he wraps his tree, wraps himself around everyone, and essentially sacrifices himself to save them. Comes back as Baby Groot, although they have confirmed that Baby Groot is Groot's son, so it's not the same character. So Groot actually, the original Groot, does die in this movie, and Baby Groot is his son, and that makes it extra sad when he does that, and especially Rocket's reaction. It's really the first human moment we get out of Rocket in the entire movie, because he's this just asshole who hates everyone and doesn't want to work with people, and then all of a sudden this moment happens, and he's crying and like, "Groot, no, you're gonna die," and it hits you. Somehow this movie manages to perfectly mix humor, awesome visuals, awesome world building, just a awesome blast of a movie, and somehow manages to put these heartfelt moments in there as well. And there's some serious tension when they're fighting the bad guys, even though it's just so ridiculous, and the humor is literally all throughout the movie. You still feel the seriousness of what's going on, because there are some characters that die, and there is a serious threat in Ronan, and the way, of course, in a movie like this, the way that they solve that is a dance-off to save the universe. Just so perfect. Fits this movie so perfectly, and the humor, fun, everything. I also like the little taste of Thanos they give us in this movie. Barely anything, and he's quite a bit different, honestly, than he is in Infinity War when we get a full glimpse of him. But I really like that they had him in an actual scene in the movie, talking, interacting with Ronan and everything. And just from those couple minutes, you feel how threatening he is, and how serious he is, and how powerful he is, how intimidating he is. And you're like, oh wow, I cannot wait until we get more of Thanos, and he's the real villain, and all of our heroes actually get to fight him. So they're doing a good job throughout this series of building up Thanos just a little bit, just giving us a little taste of him, so that when we finally get him, they pull it off so well because we've been looking forward to it so much. And of course, the soundtrack. This movie has an amazing 80s soundtrack which fits perfectly into the film, especially because the main character, Peter Quill, was pulled from Earth during the 80s. So he doesn't know what Earth is like now. He doesn't know about iPhones and iPads and laptops and whatever. He's got his Walkman with 40 songs on it or something, and he enjoys it so much, and he plays these awesome songs that we get to hear throughout the movie, like "Come and Get Your Love" at the beginning, and "Hooked on a Feeling" and "Cherry Bomb." Just incredible soundtrack. Perfectly fits the film for the kind of ridiculous. It's got almost an 80s vibe to the film in general, because it's such a fun funny comedy action movie that the soundtrack that they implement in there fits perfectly. Now, while this movie is totally awesome, there's a few issues I have with it, and the first one is Ronan. Ronan is kind of a ridiculous, over-the-top, cliche villain who wants to destroy a whole planet because I don't really know why. So just a completely cliche villain, and I understand that it kind of fits the movie because it's so ridiculous, and that's kind of the point, to have this villain that's so cliche, but I wish they would have made him maybe a little bit more interesting. Also, the Lee Pace, who portrays him, overacts like a motherfucker. He just goes so over the top, and it fits sort of within the movie, but not really, because everyone else, even though they're so sarcastic, the performances are pretty good. There's one other person that overacts, and that's Karen Gillan as Nebula. Sometimes she can be a bit over the top as well. She's also a villain, so I kind of get what they're going with there. So those two characters severely overact sometimes, and it does kind of stand out to you, and Ronan also stands out as not a very good villain. The only other issue I have with this movie is there is some exposition that feels like it's talking to the audience. And that's something that I do have an issue with in movies where there's talking scenes that don't feel natural within the movie. They feel like they're talking to us. Like there's a scene where with Ronan, Gamora, and Nebula, and Gamora's like, I'll go. I'm a daughter of Thanos too. Or she or Nebula says that, I'm not exactly sure, but they wouldn't really say that to each other. So that's why it does feel like expositional dialogue. Also, when they're doing the lineup of the Guardians, it almost seems like they're literally talking to us. There's a lot of things about these characters' backgrounds that are just completely explained to the audience, and I just wish they would have found a better way to show that or kind of incorporate that into the film that felt a little more natural. But overall, this movie is a total blast. It is hilarious. The soundtrack is awesome. There's some amazing world building and visuals and some really cool action scenes and even some heartfelt moments in there. And it somehow finds a way to get us attached to this ridiculous ragtag group of characters, including a talking raccoon and a walking tree. So this movie did what it wanted to do so well, and I'm going to give Guardians of the Galaxy an 8 out of 10. So there you have it, guys. Have you seen Guardians of the Galaxy? And I feel like I'm going to say this again. If you haven't, watch it. What the hell are you doing? It's an awesome movie. And leave a comment. What do you think? Do you disagree? Agree with me? What do you think overall? And if you like this video, make sure to hit that thumbs up button. Guys, I'm sorry I fall a little bit behind on this series. I really do enjoy doing this, and you probably won't notice this because I'm going to spread out the upload dates, but I just filmed 7 reviews in a row. That's how much I really wanted to get caught up on this thing, and that's how much I really like doing this, and I would like to it's hard to find time. It really is, and I'd like to spend more time and more money on this, but it starts with you guys. It really does. So really, if you enjoy my stuff, keep watching, keep spreading the word, please. Keep commenting, keep liking the whole shooting match. And if you're new here, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and guys, spread the word. I'll see you soon.